All right, good evening, everybody. We are going to begin tonight with a roll call vote. Well, I'll begin by calling this meeting to order, and we'll start now with a roll call vote.
Mrs. Denon.
Here.
Mr. Brophy.
Here.
Ms. Nyman. Here. Mrs. Denon. Mr. Brophy.
I'm here. Did you hear me, Mrs. Kincaid?
Yes, Mrs. Denon, I got you.
Okay.
Mr. Brophy.
Here.
Ms. Nyman.
Here.
Mrs. McWhirter.
Here.
Mr. Updegrove.
Here.
I'm sorry, there's a lag here somewhere. Mr. Updegrove.
Here.
Mr. Hemingway.
Here.
Ms. Deeroff.
Present.
Mrs. Hogan.
Is anyone talking?
Mrs. Hogan, I'm taking roll call. I'll mark you as here. Mr. Foose.
I have no audio.
I am here.
All board members are present.
All right, next we have a Pledge of Allegiance followed by a moment of silence. Pledge allegiance
To the flag, United States of America,
America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, the first item we have tonight is public comment, and there was nobody signed up, so we will move right to approval of the minutes.
Mr. Foose, prior to you going to the minutes, there is a public content underneath the roll call. I'm sorry, underneath the pledge. I will read it.
Oh, I see it now. Okay.
Would you like to go ahead?
Sure. Yes, thank you for pointing that out. I apologize. So I apologize. This was meant to be read before the Pledge of Allegiance. So I'm going to skip the first part of that. But in remembrance of September 11th, there were a series of 4 coordinated terrorist attacks by the Islamic terrorist group Al-Qaeda against the United States on the morning of Tuesday, September 11th, 2001. The attacks resulted in 2,977 fatalities, over 25,000 injuries, and substantial long-term health consequences, in addition to at least $10 billion in infrastructure and property damage. 9/11 is the single deadliest terrorist attack in human history and the single deadliest incident for firefighters and law enforcement officers in the history of the United States, with 343 and 72 killed, respectively. That was meant to be read before a moment of silence. I apologize, but please, as many have already, we reflect back on the events of that tragic day. I was a senior here at Boyertown, and it is something that I'll certainly, I'll always remember where I was that day. I was in the NHS tutoring room at the high school. All right, so we will now move to public comment.
And there is no one signed up to speak this evening.
Which there is no one. So we'll then jump to the minutes. So we have the August 25th Board of School Directors meeting minutes. Can I get a motion to approve those?
Hogan motions.
I have Ms. McWhirter, and I did hear you, Ms. Hogan, but I saw Mr. Updegrove. So he will be the second. And do we have any comments or questions on those minutes? All right, we'll go ahead and vote.
Mrs. Denon,
Yes.
Mr. Brophy,
Yes.
Ms. Nyman,
Yes.
Mrs. McWhirter,
Yes.
Mr. Updegrove,
Yes.
Mr. Hemingway,
Yes.
Ms. Deeroff,
Yes.
Mrs. Hogan,
Yes.
and Mr. Foose. Mr. Foose, you're unmuted.
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0.
Okay, the next item that we have is the resolution for a day of remembrance. On November 13th, 2018, the Boyertown Area School District Board of Directors approved a resolution, A Day to Remember. It was resolved that this resolution be publicized for all to see and know that the Boyertown Area School District remember with eternal respect those whose lives were suddenly, without cause, and pointlessly taken from them on September 11th. The commemoration was conducted on Friday, September 11th throughout the district to include the promotion of peace, service, and goodwill, the demonstration of the Boyertown Area School District's resolve and perseverance that we are a school district which promotes no place for hatred, the advancement of responsible citizenship, the encouragement of patriotism, love of country, school district, and the poignant remembrance of those innocent victims who died September 11th, 2001, as heroes, one and all. I guess at this time, I'd like to ask my colleagues if we don't mind, let's take one additional moment of silence specific to remembering the September 11th tragedy. All right, thank you.
Mr. Foose, I would just like to add that in regards to the commemoration of of September 11th, we did have a lot of activities throughout the district that our teachers were doing with their students. And they went from things where they were exploring an interactive memorial timeline. They reflected on the impact everyday heroes like firefighters, paramedics, and police had on this day. And determine ways that they can be a hero to someone during a school day. There was many classrooms that did a read aloud. We knew everything would be all right. They're reading a poem that is called I Stood, which is about the events on 9/11 through the perspective of the Statue of Liberty. There have many students, through their teachers, had been watching CNN 10's overview of 9/11 as well. So there were a lot of activities that were taking place throughout the district on Friday in recognition of September 11th and remembering those that had lost their lives that day.
And just in case people do not remember, there was a gentleman that graduated in 1976 who lost his life in that event.
Thank you.
Mr. Foose, may I add something?
Yes, please do.
Thank you. So I just wanted to say that I'd also ask people to remember all of the first responders who have died from health complications that, you know, they got working at Ground Zero, and to keep their families, you know, in their thoughts, and all the first responders who continue to battle for their lives due to those health complications. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to proceed now to the next item, which is recognition of Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. So the Boyertown Area School District is proud to announce that September is BASD Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. The Children's Cancer Research Fund, I believe this is intended to say summed it up beautifully. BASD celebrated these mighty kids and their families throughout the month of September, because we know kids fighting cancer are mighty strong, and their stories are mighty powerful. And funds raised for childhood cancer research can make a mighty big difference. Friday, September 25th marks our district-wide Gold Out. Everyone is asked to wear their golden best and participate in a variety of activities to raise awareness for childhood cancer. Throughout the month, our individual buildings will continue to recognize the importance of supporting the fight against cancer in children with special activities and casual for a cause events that will raise both awareness and funds. I apologize, it seems like something you probably were supposed to read. That's okay. Well, I did remember to wear my gold today. So we will go ahead and move along to the next item, which I'll let you take over for the specific agenda items.
All right, number 8 is the facilities change order discussion and information. The subject is the approval of the ATA Phase 2 Bash Stadium Project change order PC 001 to move to the September 29th, 2020 meeting. So the discussion will be headed by Mr. Drescher, and I believe Mr. Clough is also there. So at this time, Mrs. Kincaid, do you have something to share for Mr. Drescher? No. All right. So the change order PC 001 is for Integrity Mechanical Incorporated for the ATAMM Phase 2 Bash Stadium project for an increase of $7,971.90. The change order PC 001 is for Integrity Mechanical Inc. for grease trap modifications required by Sewer Authority. Grease trap was to be installed inside the building and relocated as directed by the Sewer Authority to outside the building. This has now become a traffic grade sewer pit to allow for vehicular traffic. We will be asking for the board to, we will be bringing this to the board for motion for approval at the last meeting of the month. The other item is approval of ATAMM Phase 2 Bash Stadium Project Change Order MC 001 to move to the September 29th, 2020 meeting. This change order MC 001 for Integrity Mechanical Inc. for the ATAMM Phase 2 Bash Stadium Project for an increase of $9,344. The change order MC 001 for Integrity Mechanical Inc. to relocate and extend ductwork for grill hood as per code enforcement. Ductwork will be moved out and onto the roof to include roof curbs and rails to support fan ductwork. High temperature access doors to allow for cleaning of additional ducts and 90s insulation for ducts per ASI-04. So change order Integrity Mechanical MC 001 for Mechanical 09-2020 is At this time, I know that Mr. Drescher and Jay Cloth are in the audience for any questions.
All right, so just to clarify, so tonight is discussion, and these will be on the agenda for the upcoming
Correct.
meeting. Okay.
Yes.
All right, so any questions? I see Mr. Updegrove.
Yeah.
Up my hand up too.
As far as them moving the stuff and charging us for it, shouldn't that have been looked at and in the bid before this project started? I mean, now they're saying that the grease pit has to be outside instead of inside. Sounds like they didn't do their homework on that to verify where that grease pit's got to be. That's a standard issue with any kind of when you're serving food on a fryer or anything. That stuff there, you know, if they overlooked it, I don't think we should have to pay for those projects if they overlooked it.
If I can comment to that, this was something that was in the plan. It was inside the building rather than outside the building. And when they reviewed the plans and everything, they did not want it inside the building. They wanted it outside the building. And so we had to upgrade the box to make it a traffic safe box that can be driven on.
I understand that, but I'd like to understand the fact that why that wasn't in the project in the very beginning. If it was actually something that had to be.
This is Jay Clough. Perhaps I can shed some light on it. Tip code allows it to be in the building, and that's where we put it because it's easier to maintain. The sewer authority has the discretion to ask for more than the code requires, and they did. The reason it wasn't in the bid price, they only met monthly, and it's not an individual that ruled on this. It was the sewer authority as an authority. So by the time they ruled on this, we had already opened the bids because we didn't want to do bids. As you recall, it's ironic now with COVID-19, we were trying to get everything wrapped up so we could get out, get constructed, and finished by the football season. So when the bids were open, the code, the grease trap was in the building per code, but the sewer authority was waiting to schedule a meeting after we opened the bids to rule on whether they wanted to move it. They have the ultimate right to do that.
All right, Mr. Updegrove, do you have any additional? Okay. And I believe Mrs. Deeroff, you had said you had a question.
Yes, sir. If that's the case, what your explanation gave, and we know this can happen, that regardless what the code is, somebody else can override the code, such as the sewer authority. Why isn't this stuff checked ahead of time? This is one of the reasons we get low bids, because everybody says, oh, it doesn't matter. We'll just go back and put a change order in. I'm tired of change orders. And if these things can happen, then I feel it's our responsibility to check with the various places. This isn't the first time it's happened, to find out what we could do before we go ahead and put it in our drawings.
I certainly understand that, and I feel your pain. The process is rather slow when you work with complete, authority boards, and we had launched that process. I take responsibility. I did not want to hold up the bids, so yes, I can be blamed.
I realize that, sir. I wasn't trying to put blame on anybody.
No, that's okay. I want to explain how we got there, though, because you raise a really valid point. We were engaged in those discussions, fully expecting, because we met the code, to be fine with those discussions. You have to compound it by the amount of grease we're going to generate is minuscule. We're cooking a few times a year, and we're not making nearly the grease that a commercial restaurant would make. Be that as it may, we were engaged in those discussions with the sewer authority, and we were working through that laborious process of getting them to get everybody together, hold a meeting, make the decision. It didn't happen in a timely enough manner to suit me, so I went out to bid trying, and again, to be ready for football season with the concession, which of course, that whole thing went to pieces with COVID-19, but who knew?
Thank you for the explanation. I still don't want to pay the extra money. You never make it up selling hamburgers. Brandon's muted if you're talking.
Okay. Yeah, hello. Yeah, apologies. There's some issues we're sorting through, but Mr. Brophy has a question next.
Just a quick question for either Mr.
Okay, Mr. Brophy, can you hear me? Okay. My understanding is that this is not new money, that this is part of the budget that has been set forth for this. The business office did provide me information with regard to the change order. So it is money that is within the budget.
Okay, so it's part of the contingency fund inside the project. Okay, that's fine.
Yes,
That's what contingency funds are for.
yes.
I have a question again.
Okay, Mr. Brophy, are you good to? Okay, Mrs. Diroff, please go ahead.
Okay, I couldn't hear whatever he was saying. Everybody was not there. And the question I have is, we had to hire somebody else now. Do we have control of that bill, or do we have to leave that in the contract and let, I can't bring the other screen up to see what, I can't think of his name now. The one that has a contract, Barry Isaac. Does he pay them, or do we pay them?
Are you speaking about the inspection?
Yes.
Yeah, that's something that we pay.
Okay, so we should
And
get a
that-
lot of money back from that,
And that is in the budget.
but we should get a lot of money back. How much are we taking out of his amount?
He's just not getting paid to do that work. We're paying Blackmore and Associates to do the work.
Well, no, wait, there was a certain amount of money in his contract. Correct?
No, I don't believe it was in his contract. No, it was a separate bill that we pay to them.
So this was just time?
I'm sorry, say again?
So was it just time?
Yes, it's a
There was
time.
no, it was open-ended, there was no amount on the contract?
There was a budget derived from the industry standards on what we were looking for as independent inspections on top of all the other inspections that are going on there to protect the school district.
Right, well, there had to be some kind of money, dollars and cents on that, not?
Yeah, there was a budget that was driven by Barry Isett, and I don't have it in front of me, I apologize, but I believe it was between 12 and 14,000.
Okay, so if that's the case, then we'll be withholding that whole 12 or 14,000 from him?
Yes,
Not just the amount the new guy charges us?
that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And Mrs. Diroff, the part that you couldn't hear was Mr. Brophy asked if the change order was part of the contingency fund in the budget, and I answered yes.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, ma'am.
Okay, do we have any other questions or comments?
Mr. Hemingway has his hand up.
Okay, Mr. Hemingway.
All right, I guess not necessarily a question, but more of just a comment that these change orders seem to, this is something that should have been dealt with, I think, ahead of time. I'm not too willing. I'm a contractor myself. I understand change orders. But from my experience on sewer authorities, and I was on the sewer authority at one time, we hire these engineers and we hire these designers so that we have things precise, that when we finally give the okay, that things run smoothly. And I understand that if we can't see a rock in the ground, that's one thing. But modifications and dealing with items that should have been dealt with in the beginning, I struggle with change orders, especially in this situation where it's already built in to our budget. And I just want to make sure that that isn't being exploited and taken advantage of. I mean, I understand, it's stupid to say it is what it is, but I guess we have to pay these, but I'm not happy to do so. So as I remember a conversation when we were dealing, maybe I'm still sore about the toilets, I don't know. But I remember we said the number that we had, it wasn't going to exceed that, and we weren't going to be dealing with a bunch of change orders, and here we are, we got 2 already. So that's just my comments, not necessarily a question. So I don't want to offend anybody. I'm sure everything's going as planned, but we just need to be careful that, you know, we could say it's a change order of 7, change order of 10, and before you know it, we got change order, and we're being taken advantage of, and I don't like that. So that's all I have.
Mr. Foos?
Yes, Ms. Stenen, I have you next. Go ahead.
Okay, so just a couple of questions. In terms of the $9,344, have we checked, Mr. Drescher and Mr. Clough, with Fidavia, who is supposed to be our construction management, that's supposed to step in and look at this work and make sure this is all our total responsibility? And, you know, the reason we hire the construction manager is to kind of help us mitigate some of these change order costs. So just wanted to ask the question to see if we have made sure that these issues were of just general contractor problems and not problems that may have been created by any of the individual contractors not doing what they were contracted to do, and Fidavia not you know, managing this, because I know in past projects, and this is no way on the scale of a high school project, but I know in past projects, we do work with Fidavia and whoever is our construction manager to mitigate some of these costs and to go back to some of the contractors. And if any of this was because of their, you know, negligence or mistake or whatever, sometimes there's a shared responsibility. So just wanted to know for my own information if some of those questions were asked.
Yeah, I can answer that. Absolutely, you raise a really, really good point. We are really, really concerned. This is taxpayer money, and it's not something that's, you know, we get run roughshod with. Every change order goes through Fidavia. Every change order goes through my office. If that change order has it concerns civil engineering, it goes through Barry Isaac. If it concerns structure, it goes through Barry Isaac. If it concerns mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, it goes through Barry Isaac. So 3 firms look at it, and then it goes, and only then does it go to Charlie Drescher and his office to take a look. The first question we always ask is, can we mitigate it? First of all, is it fair? Is it something the contractor should be responsible for? In this case, frankly, it was done before he bid it, so it's pretty clear cut. And there's going to be another one like it coming up in the next round here. This is going to be in the same boat. So, but even having said all that, it's pretty clear it's not his fault. So the next question is, how can we mitigate it? And honestly, it was slightly higher than this, and we did ask for some credits back, because by moving it outside, there's a little bit less piping inside the building. And that's actually, believe it or not, as expensive as this is, it's reflected in this change order. So yes, we try to mitigate. First of all, is it even the district's problem? And you don't hear from the ones that aren't. There's always a few bumps in the road, and we take care of those behind the scenes. This one is clearly not the contractor's fault. It's been mitigated to the best of our abilities with all the firms I mentioned. Now we bring it to you.
Thank
And
you. I
Ms.
appreciate that explanation.
Ms. Denon, if I could add to that, I've been doing this all my life and I spend money like it's my own, and I'm a pretty cheapskate if you ask all my kids. I look at these things when I get these change orders come across my desk. It's after I've already looked at them, seen them, talked with Shelby from Fredavia, and if we need to get Barry Isett involved, we get him involved as well. And I am cutthroat where any credits we can get back to mitigate the cost that's additional is the first thing I look for. And then, you know, we look at it if it's contractor error or if it's just a plan problem. And the unforeseen stuff that's underground, the good hope is that we're out of the ground now. And, you know, we shouldn't really see any kind of change orders going forward. But I will say that there is still a possibility of that. But trust in me that I'm the guy who's out there playing the cutthroat cop when it comes to these additional change orders.
I thank you, Mr. Drescher. I trust that you are doing that, and I know that we've started working together on some of these projects, and I do trust your judgment. So thank you so much.
All right, thank you for the questions and explanations. Do we have anyone else wishing to ask a question or any discussion on this?
So Brandon, I mean to interrupt.
Go ahead.
So basically, we're going by Mr. Drescher's recommendation to pay these change orders. Is that what it comes down to?
I would say in the process, he serves as representation from the district to make sure that they're appropriate and fair.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Drescher.
You're welcome.
All right, so next we have a presentation on the return to school plan.
Correct. Thank you. And at this time, I am going to turn it over to Mr. Stout, and he will do that presentation.
Thank you, Mrs. Torsha. Hopefully everyone is able to see my screen share. Yes? Okay. So first of all, I need to say, just kicking off our presentation tonight, Mrs. Torsha and I have spent the last couple weeks touring and visiting the buildings. And this week has been especially exciting and special in the sense that some of our students have started to return and to actually go out and see our teachers interacting with students and seeing how kids are wearing their masks. And you know, especially our pre-K students have been back for 2 weeks. It has been incredibly exciting to see them sitting. It looks different than it's ever looked in the past, but there are some really exciting, interesting activities happening, some sharing with iPads, some things that we didn't think could really happen with 3, 4, and 5-year-olds happening on a daily basis in our classroom. So a little bit later on in the presentation, we will give you an example from an elementary school perspective of what this new virtual environment looks like. So just to review, we have in the past, we presented that the only thing constant is change. And as we evolve forward and look forward to what's happening in the Boyertown Area School District, we must keep the safety and well-being of our students at the forefront of all of our decision making. As we review, we look at our vision, mission, and goals. And just a reminder that, you know, our district focus and what helps to guide much of our decision making. And I just wanted to remind the board of the definitions of what the instructional models look like. We have our full in-person model of instruction. We have our blended hybrid learning model, and we have our full remote learning model. Currently, for the most part, we're in our full remote learning model for the majority of our district, but we do have some elements of our full in-person model. And as you see in our presentation, we are exciting moving forward to our blended hybrid learning model in the very near future. So our update and what we're looking forward to moving forward with, again, thinking about our safety and our well-being of our students. This is a representation of what our model will look like between now and October 5th. So as I need to move the screen over here a little bit. As we had discussed before, our students, many of our students with IEPs, some of our students that are more in need of support, both from a cognitive perspective and a physical perspective, returned to school yesterday. And again, Mrs. Torsha and I went around and visited many classrooms, and things are going very well in those classrooms. Our BCTC students have returned 2 days a week. They are able to access BCTC 2 days a week, which will be Mondays and Tuesdays based upon our current schedule within our district. When we look at what the options are moving forward with our hybrid plan, by our AB plan, which I'll give more details about as we move forward with this presentation, our students will attend brick and mortar 2 days a week, and they will attend virtually 3 days a week. So you will have a Monday, Tuesday group, which will be our A group, which will attend Monday, Tuesday. Wednesday is going to be a virtual day for all of our students. And then you have your Thursday, Friday group, which will be the B group. And that's what it talks about in the next two little blocks in our presentation. One thing we really decided as a district to be consistent and provide the same amount of brick and mortar days for our students is really looking at a remote Wednesday and a virtual Wednesday. We will be running a compressed schedule on Wednesdays for the most part in the mornings, and then flexible groupings in the afternoons to support many different things. Individualized instruction for students that need that, the ability for teachers to collaborate, and also the ability for our staff to really talk and build capacity with one another across the district. We have worked very diligently in the process of creating these A and B groups to move forward with coming back to school. And we have utilized Infinite Campus and the ability for Infinite Campus to create rosters of students. And what is a daunting task, if you really think about it, if you have a kindergarten student, you have a middle school student, and you have a high school student that all live under the same house, under the same roof, but perhaps they all have different last names, it would be imperative for those kids to be attending school on the same days. Our Infinite Campus had the ability to generate a roster that would be for the ability for kids across grade levels to be attending on the same days. So with that example, you could have a high school student who is a student who attends on Monday and Tuesday, and also BCTC, who would be the same schedule as their kindergarten housemate. So it would allow the ability for some of our older students to potentially be watching after our younger students. So if you really think about having almost 7,000 students across our district, with students with similar last names, with different last names, but living under the same household, we had the ability to create and generate these lists and class rosters. So what does this look like on a weekly basis? Created a schedule for you to look at. Monday, Tuesday, if you look at Group A would be attending face-to-face for instruction for the whole day. And then on Group B, on Monday and Tuesday, those students would attend remotely. As I discussed earlier, the Wednesday would be both virtual for Group A and Group B. They would attend remotely for the whole day, and this would be a combination of synchronous and asynchronous work. Thursday, Friday would be our Group B group, which would be attending face-to-face, and then our Group A students would be attending remotely. The next step in our return to school plan starts really on September 21st, which is next Monday. We are going to have our kindergarten students be returning to us in that A-B modeling that I discussed on the previous slide. Just today, we have communicated out to our kindergarten families with respect to what days they will be attending. And tomorrow, we will be sending out busing information for our kindergarten students to start attending on September 21st. As we move forward, we wanted to bring more groups of students back and create consistency and create the opportunity for kids to feel comfortable coming back to school. So Mrs. Torsha and I have worked on a plan to have our first graders returned on the following Monday, which would be Monday, September 28th. And as we discussed before, it'll follow in the AB format that was on a previous slide. And our first grade students will be returning to us on this particular day. So to review, we already have our pre-K students back from last week. They will be attending 4 out of the 5 days a week. Our kindergarten students, or students with special needs, have attended starting yesterday. Our kindergarten students will be starting to attend on Monday, September 21st. And then on Monday, September 28th, our first grade students will be returning. And again, here's the overview of the pre-K program. Just so the board is aware, initially, if you reflect back to our plan about a month or so ago, we had discussed having a virtual Friday. So when we set up our pre-K schedule and starting with our pre-K students, we started off with a virtual Friday for our pre-K students. But as our kindergarten students return next week, we have communicated with our pre-K families that we're going to move to a virtual Wednesday, so their schedule will model after the rest of the district. As we talk about future transition for our district, Mrs. Torsha and I have looked forward in the schedule, and it's hard to think about our first trimester ending because it seems like school just started. But on Monday, November 26th, is the end of the first trimester across the district. So we have talked about what kinds of transition plans might look like, assuming our return to school schedule and model is successful. What might it look like to be bringing more students back from a brick and mortar perspective around the 16th of November? So at this time, I'm going to stop screen sharing and I'm going to ask Mrs. Ariel Boyer. She is a first grade teacher at Washington Elementary School. She has spearheaded a lot of virtual discussions. I have been to her classroom probably 2 or 3 times since the start of the school year and witnessed her teaching virtually to her students. So what she's going to do with us tonight is she is going to give you a brief overview. I want you to all pretend that you are first grade students and that you are learning from Mrs. Boyer. And I don't know if she has her little bike horn that she honks to get her students' attention, but at this point, I'm going to stop screen sharing and allow her to do so.
And I'm just going to interject and say, aloha, Mrs. Boyer.
Aloha, Mrs. Torsha.
Yeah, Mrs. Torsha and I were in Mrs. Boyer's classroom just yesterday, and she has all of her students say aloha because she's got a kind of a beach theme in her room. So we were excited about that. So Mrs. Boyer, hopefully you can screen share now and you can show us some of your awesome work.
I believe that I can. Can you guys see it?
Yep.
Sorry, I just happened to go thumbs up because that's what my kindergarten kids always do. As Mike said, I am a first grade teacher at Washington Elementary. And before I get started, I just wanted to thank both administration and the board for inviting me on here to kind of share what we're doing in first grade. It's been definitely a challenging start to the school year. I was honored to have a chance to be part of the virtual team over the summer. And when I say that I have learned a lot, that doesn't even begin to cover how much knowledge with technology has been crammed into my mind over the past few months. I do want to send a special thank you out to one of our instructional coaches, Mike Creed. He's kind of been my right-hand man with this, trying to troubleshoot things, figure out the best way to make this a kid-friendly virtual learning environment for the kids, which is very challenging, as we've already heard people say, especially in kindergarten and first grade. But he's kind of been with me every step of the way, showing me different tools that I can use and incorporate. And what I've been able to create with his help, I think, is very kid-friendly and also very functional for the kids in the classroom. One more special thank you to some parent supporters. Some of them are past parents. Kristen Weller and Sharona McDowell have really been a huge part in helping me troubleshoot things as well. Over the summer, I would send them classrooms that you guys are going to see. They would have their students, which are one of their first graders is in my class. I had one of Mrs. McDowell's first graders last year, and she also has a son that's in first grade in Mrs. Linderman's room this year. So she's kind of been troubleshooting between Mrs. Weller and Mrs. McDowell, checking things out, letting the kids explore to make sure that it was something that they would be able to navigate on their own, because the whole goal is to take the pressure off of the parents and really let them be in that school environment in a virtual situation. So I'm going to take you through a day in the life of a first grader. Sorry, I do not have my horn here with me, and I will not be singing any of our songs, but I will just kind of explain to you, what a day looks like. So I have linked through the computer my virtual classroom, and when it opens up, you can see it says, "Welcome to Mrs. Boyer's Island of Learning." This is linked to actually my Google Classroom, so the kids know how to go into the Google Classroom app on their iPad, and there is where they find not just the link to the Zoom every day, but also a link to this virtual classroom. Even though the students at times go into this classroom on their own, it's also something that I use as a teaching tool for every subject and content area throughout the school day. So it kind of has started to become, something that the kids are becoming very familiar with. I can tell them, I want to go practice handwriting. What room are we going to go into? And they'll say, the Fundations Room. So they're starting to try and, really navigate and know where things are, just like they would in the physical classroom. We might not have hands-on manipulatives right now, but if they were in the physical classroom, they would know exactly where to go to find the materials they need. And this virtual classroom is set up so that they are able to find those same tools just in a digital world. So in the morning, we actually have art first thing. So I do a quick little hello with the kids, and then they are off to art with Mrs. Yurkovich. And when they come back to me, we start by, just simply taking attendance. And like Mrs. Torsha and Mr. Stout said, we say aloha, because yes, my classroom in the real physical room is completely transformed into a tropical paradise, but also I tried to mimic that in the virtual classroom so that when kids do start coming back to school, it's like they're kind of still in that same environment. So after we take attendance, we start with the Pledge of Allegiance, just like we would in school. And right here, linked to the flag, I would just click on this with the kids, and it's just a very quick video of a waving flag and someone saying the Pledge of Allegiance so that they are saying it along with them. And once we are done the pledge, we would go into our morning meeting. This is something that we do together as a class. But the really neat thing about the virtual world is that once we've done it together on Google Slides, what we've done is then automatically linked to this homeroom. So at the end of the day, if their parents say, hey, what did you guys do today? What'd you learn? They can literally click right into this virtual morning meeting, and they can share things like the month of the year, days of the week, what the weather was like today, the season. We do a lot with incorporating math in morning meeting for days of school. Today happened to be a really super big day because we finally made a bundle of 10. So the kids were really excited that we got to trade out all of our little Unifix cubes and bump them over here and take a 10 stick and move it into the 10s part of our chart. So that was a very exciting thing in first grade. The same thing here, still showing that number 10, that number of the day, just in a different way for math with a 10s frame. And then this slide, we're just kind of moving along in the hundreds chart, and we also kind of practice along the way with our counting just to review since it's the beginning of first grade. And the kids, right from the start, were you know, we're instilling this in them that, you know, part of first grade is understanding what's one less, one more, 10 more, 10 less. Not all of them really grasp that concept right now, but it's something that through repetition, they start to be able to do it mentally or with the help of the hundreds chart to be able to see the one that comes before, the one that comes after, one that's 10 more. And then this one was tricky today, but the kids luckily used their finger sticks and realized that 10 before 10 would be, oh, 0. So they had a little bit of fun with that. We do sing lots of songs along the way with morning meeting for the different slides. So it kind of is a really fun activity to start the day, to just build community. It's really funny when the kids are, you know, when we sing, they don't go on mute, so everybody can hear them singing. Half the time it's a little bit of a delay, so one person's singing this part of the song while the other one's still trailing behind. But, you know, the kids, they're used to it. You know, they're just singing their hearts out and doing their activities. So it doesn't faze them sometimes that there's a delay in the audio. After our morning meeting, we actually jump right into math, which kind of correlates really nicely because we've done a lot of math skills with the morning meeting. So for math, we head right into our math bucket, and the kids know that this is going to take them directly to our counting cove. And the first thing that you might notice is that there's a lot of digital tools here. And I did that specifically because things like Unifix cubes and counter chips, geo boards and base 10 blocks, we don't have them right now at our disposal. So for example, I can go right here into the counting chips and it loads in that digital tool, and the kids are able to actually pull out a tens frame. They can grab one chip at a time. They can actually also grab 5 chips at a time, and they can move them into the tens frame as some counting practice, which then builds into addition and subtraction and so on. So each of those are their digital tools right now. They are able to use them to help figure out math problems that we do along the way. There's also IXL and Zern. Right now, these are not linked into this quite yet because the kids right now, we're trying to just, you know, the past 2 weeks, learn this virtual classroom. We just introduced seesaw activities this week. So kind of week by week, we're unloading for the parents. You know, last week was get your child signed up on Seesaw. Next week's going to be get your child signed up on Raz Kids. So there's, you know, we're kind of slowly rolling it out so that it's not too overwhelming for the families all at once to have all of these codes and all of these logins all at once. So once the kids do have that login information, then these will become a clickable item that's in the counting cove where they'll be able to go in to practice skills. So right now, in the beginning of the year for math, we are just simply reviewing numbers 1 to 10, how to write them, how to represent them in different ways. So their mini lesson right now, that is whole group, is already preloaded into the life preserver. And when I click on it, this pops up for them to see. And it obviously starts 1 all the way to 10. So we basically just go one slide at a time per day. And now today we were on number 6. So the kids, as we go through to find the number of the day, they're now practicing their chants down from the sun to make the 1. And as we go all the way through every single chant until we get to that specific number of the day. Once we get here, I quick teach them the chant, which usually has some kind of movement. This one happened to be down into a loop, 6 rolls of hula hoop, and the kids are standing up at home doing a hula hoop motion. And then, you know, I usually ask them, I say, hey guys, what do we need to show the number 6? What tools do you need to have ready? And they go run, they grab their paper, their drawing tools, their writing tools, and they get themselves ready because this video, when I click on it, it's embedded right into the slide and it shows them tons of different ways to represent 6 with first grade strategies. So as the video is going, they're kind of doing their activity at the same time. So if they see tally marks for 6, they're trying to show tally marks at the same time. When there is a tens frame, they're trying to draw the tens frame, show it in a picture strategy. So the lesson is already here. It's already embedded. so that I don't have to worry about managing a lot of different web browsers at the same time, because everything's within that virtual classroom and already preloaded. When they are done with that, we always go into a share. And I just kind of snapped some photos over the past couple of days to kind of add into this, to give you a perspective of what this looks like. This picture right here where the black smudges are, I just kind of went over the kiddos' pictures and their names for privacy, but you can see that this thumbnail here, I can see anywhere between 4 or 5 kids at a time. This is actually my smart board. It's not my laptop. This is actually the smart board in my classroom. So it's projected up there. So I can either be looking at my laptop or I can be looking at the smart board, depending upon where I'm standing to teach in the room. So I have access to kind of keep an eye on the kids. I can scroll through their pictures. If they have a question, then I'm able to see that they need some support. This was all of their ideas from today, all the ways to show the number 6. And something that the kids have really enjoyed doing is using the balance tool that's actually in the classroom that's right here. So this balance tool, they like to kind of check their work almost as a group and use these combinations of numbers for a scale. So I snapped a picture of one of the ones we did today where a kiddo said, hey, I can make 6. I'm going to use 1 and 5 to make 6. So I kind of pull the weights over, and then if 5 and 1 do make 6, then they know that the scale would be balanced because it's the same on both sides. So they kind of get really excited about that. And when they're allowed to go explore the digital tools in the math room, this is usually one of the ones that is a number 1 choice and pick for the kids because they really, really enjoy it. Once we're done this, then they would go into Seesaw. And if you're not familiar with Seesaw, it's an amazing learning tool that has tons of activities that I can do voice recordings with, so that I'm actually verbalizing the directions. It's nothing that the kids have to actually read. It's something that they're hearing my voice. They know what they're supposed to do. They complete an activity. And then when they hit the check mark, all of their work and their thinking comes directly to me. It makes it very easy to differentiate in really all subject areas for the kids. And it's a very easy tool, especially virtually, for these kids to be able to kind of access and utilize to show their learning to me. So if I go out of the math room, after we're done math, we're usually in some kind of working snack time, we call it. So whether that's letting them explore the counting code, do activities, or whether they're finishing up a Seesaw activity, they've got that short little kind of 15-minute bathroom break or snack break, which we usually do right in the classroom as well for first graders. After our snack, we would go into a brain break because we love brain breaks as young kids. So the wheel that's spinning takes them to actually a flippity wheel, and all we do is we spin. It'll land on a kid's name. They get super excited when their name is picked, and then that kiddo is actually able to choose the brain break for us. And all I do is I have Go Noodle with my teacher account connected right to the home screen so that they can go in. And the kiddos they go through, they pick if they want to do a dance activity or a workout activity or stretch or breathing. There's so many options. So they get very excited for brain break time. After our brain break, it's actually time to go into our Fundations room. And for those of you who don't know Fundations, it is basically letter writing, correct handwriting position for letter formation, specific phonic sounds that go with those letters and correlate. So the kids have now learned that the Fundations room is the handwriting paper that's right here on the table. So when we say it's Fundations time, they know where I'm going, and it brings them to the Fundations Funhouse. And again, just like math, there's individual links here that are going to be digital tools for them to support them. Each week I try to have a book, a read aloud that has to do with letters, linked to this alphabet chart. This week happens to be a Dr. Seuss ABC book. So sometimes I will read that with them one of the days, or if they have free time, they're allowed to go in and do the read aloud on their own. Over here, there's always the link to the vowel sounds, because they are the trickiest sounds for first graders to learn. So they would just click here and they'd be able to hear those sounds over and over again whenever they needed to. And then, as you can see, Monday through Friday, there are baskets that already have the preloaded activities for every day of the week. So again, just like math, it's not that I'm scrambling through web browsers. Everything's already here and linked. So it makes it very easy to use this Bitmoji Virtual Classroom as an actual working tool. So today, we actually did the letter A. And we start by just doing a really fun song. A lot of the times the kids get up and dance. You know, when they see a word that they know, they get really excited. And after the video, we would go into the model handwriting lessons for the capital and the lowercase letters. Here are some photos of what it looks like in the classroom if you saw this. This would be something that I would be writing on. My camera would be turned to the chart paper so that, you know, as they're watching this video, hearing words that have the specific targeted sound, they're recalling those words and I'm recording it for them. After we're done that, we obviously would do the handwriting specific formation. And again, I'm modeling while they're modeling at home as well. And right now, you know, they're holding their papers up all the way to the camera. Everybody wants to show. But now that we are introducing Seesaw this week, starting next week, they're going to be able to use the Seesaw app to take a photo of their work and send it to me so that then I have documentation of their actual letter formation, which makes it really nice since we don't have that paper and pencil passing right now. And again, you can see I just blacked out the pictures. That's kind of what it looks like on the smartboard. Once the Fundations lesson is done, they kind of have some options. Today was Tuesday, so we know that already Monday we practiced some letters. Once they're done their handwriting, since kids get done at all different times, they have some options over here on the shelf. And you can see that these are the letters that are loaded for this week. This fun house always looks the same each week, so they know exactly where to find things. It's just that the lessons in the baskets change and the letters on the shelf changed based on what we're learning. So for today, once they were done, they would be able to go into the letter A, and there would be 6 different choices that they could work on independently while the rest of their classmates are still working on the assigned activity. So it's really nice that they've got, you know, a little bit of a choice board so that when they're done early, they always have something that is ready for them to work on. Let me get out of here. Once Fundations is done, we usually head into our writing lesson after a short little break. Again, it could be a brain break. It might be a scavenger hunt where I say, go get something yellow. And they all go running off in their house and they find something yellow and they bring it back. And then we kind of share out what we found. And then they have to run to put it back. Anything that's going to get them up and moving and away from their device for a few minutes is what I'm looking for in this experience. Writing is kind of the same way as the other classrooms. You know, right now we're reviewing the 1G words for power words. So they actually have a physical virtual word wall here that they are going to be using to write. When we start the week, Monday, we always have a mentor text. This week we're happening to write about what we like. So right here next to my Bitmoji is the story. Now on Monday I would play this for them. We would watch it, we would talk about it, and then we would brainstorm. But the neat thing is this video with the book is always here for the whole week. So the kids, again, can go back and revisit it at any time that they need to. Up here in this picture, this is actually our brainstorming. There's a website called flippity.net, and they have this new activity that's called a word cloud. And as the kids are brainstorming, instead of me actually writing them on a chart paper, I'm typing them into this coded activity sheet, and then it creates a word cloud with all of their ideas. So if I click on it directly, it brings it up even bigger for the kids. So if they're looking for the word pond, they can go to the bigger version and actually find it. And the kids really love the fact that we can change the colors. Someone gets to pick, ooh, what colors are it going to be today? What are we going to put in our classroom for the week? So again, it's a really cool digital tool that's free, that's just out there that you can kind of pull in and use it in a way that makes sense for you. This video here, we actually watched today because yesterday we started with our illustrations to get ready for Writer's Workshop. And today we actually tried to start getting our ideas to match our picture down on the paper. So this little short video, we watched it. The kids, you know, learned what do we have to have? Capital, spacing between, punctuation at the end. So it was a really good refresher for them as to what a sentence needs. And over here on this shelf, this 1G box here links to a Powtoon video with actually all of these words. As well as these Jack Hartman videos that are also kind of sight word activity videos, but this one specifically targets all of our reading program words, which is really helpful when the kids are looking for a word and I'm not physically there to help them like I would be in the classroom. So they can actually click right here and it'll take them to the Powtoon video, and then they're hearing and seeing it, and then they can recall it and go find it on the word wall when it's actually time to write. And I gotta tell you, I'm pretty impressed so far with the kids because they're actually using the word wall. They're helping me when I'm modeling. Oh, what do you see on the word wall? Can you help me find the letter T? Let's look for the word to. So they're starting to really utilize the virtual word wall like we would in the actual physical word wall. This picture here, you'll see a camera. This is something that I personally had with a tripod. And for me, you'll see at the very end of the presentation, this system's working out really well for me, that when I'm presenting from my laptop, I can teach right from here with my slides. But when I'm doing something on a chart, I can change my camera so that you would not see my picture. It would actually change to what my camera view is looking at. That gives them the option to see modeled lesson and toggle back and forth. There's a lot of little things that are kind of working together to make this work. And again, this is kind of the view. This is on the smartboard, and this is what they are seeing. So you can see here, this is the shared screen that the kids are seeing, but where my picture would be, that's where my modeled writing is. And then here is the actual word wall, the physical word wall. So when the kids do come back, they actually have now two options, the virtual or the actual physical one. Let's see, what else? As far as cafe lessons for reading, this goes into the reading cove. And Mike, how am I doing on time? Do I need to speed up the explanation?
Yeah, I would say a few more minutes, Ariel. You'll be good.
Okay, just want to check. So basically, here's the reading reef. Each of these boats have specific levels. Right now, the kids are getting baselines done through Raz Kids. Once we have a baseline for them, we're going to be able to actually direct them and say, hey, you know, right now you are a level 1G reader. So they can come here, they can click on the 1G book. It takes them to a Power Word video for practice. If they want to play a game with those words, they can click right here on the iPad. And these are some games that I created at the end of last year, where there's memory games, the word wheel that you saw with the names, and they can actually click and play memory with those power words for practice. Over here is where they're going to be able to link right to their Raz Kids account, Epic account, Bookflix, Story Online, all things that we're familiar with. And always in the reading basket will be some reading slides that have all digital books that are linked. So they've got right now two options. They have one page that has back to school books and one that has fall books as we get ready to go to fall. And then a making words activity for when they're practicing, so that they can pull down some tiles. They can practice making words since we don't have the letter tiles. And then these fish would just have connections to some word families and things like that. And then I think the only other thing that's in here would be, we've got our happy helper expectation rules, but this also is something that was very beneficial for parents. If the parents need any kind of support whatsoever, they can come to the Pineapples for Parents page through their child's Google Classroom, and the newsletter's linked, our district calendar. They can click on the specials and see exactly what we have during the year, click directly on the email that'll take them to that special teacher's email. Once we're back in brick and mortar, if they're ordering lunch, they can go to the lunchbox, PTO links, our daily schedule, Seesaw helpful hints, phone numbers they might need, emails, parent resources as well. So as you can see, it's a lot, but we literally took it one day at a time, and the kids were introduced to one classroom a day so that by the end of it, they really knew what it was and where they were going. And then I know Mike said just to take a few pictures of the whole classroom so you can see what it's going to look like when we're back in that hybrid state. In all honesty, nothing's really going to be changing because I'm going to have a few kids with me and the rest of the class is at home. So the only difference is while the kids are in my classroom sitting at their desks, they would not be on their actual device. They'd be watching and listening through the smartboard system. And then when they go to do independent work, they would be back on their individual device. So this way, you know, they're still getting that same instruction that the kids at home are getting. It's just going to look a little different because they won't need to be directly on their device when they're in the classroom unless they're in a small group breakout session. So I know that was a lot.
Thank you, Mrs. Boyer. You did an outstanding job. I loved how you had a picture of the classroom and the umbrella in the middle of the room. So super exciting. And I need to say to the school board members here, the couple times, actually a few times that I visited the classroom, just the enthusiasm that Mrs. Boyer presents with tonight is exuded with the presentation with her kids. They're laughing, they're having a great time, and they're very enthusiastic about their learning. So at this time, what I want to do before, because we just have a few more slides in our presentation, but while Mrs. Boyer and you've kind of seen many of the elements, I didn't know if any board members had any questions directly to Mrs. Boyer as far as you know, what's happening, some follow-up on the presentation from her perspective. But instead of moving forward, I thought it'd be good to put it out to the school board now.
All right. So we'll look for any questions for Mrs. Boyer or Mr. Stout at this time. But before I field any, I just have to say my youngest is in first grade. So a lot of this is very familiar to me now. And it is absolutely amazing to listen in on or to observe. I'm working from home. I'm actually working in my basement, and out my window is the ground level in the backyard. So if I see my kids outside playing wiffle ball, I know they're on a brain break. But I like to go upstairs to listen to what's going on, and it's amazing the interactions, the ability to get them moving. It is such a massive undertaking, and it is truly impressive what you guys have done and are continuing to do.
Thank you.
And that was a great presentation too, as well.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a couple of people online, and then I'll also look in the room. So I have Ms. Hogan, Mrs. Denon, and Mr. Hemingway.
Okay, I'll take a turn.
And then I'll add Mrs. Deeroff to that, and I see Mrs. McWhirter.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Foose. I just wanted to thank Mrs. Boyer for her presentation. It was really great. It looks like you have created a really fun atmosphere, and I'm sure your children, not your children, your students. I was thinking from a parent's perspective how much I would appreciate it, but yes, so thank you. It looks like a really, really great place to learn and to enjoy learning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mrs. Denon.
Yeah, that was really excellent. I really enjoyed seeing that. Just a couple of questions. How is it with in terms of like classroom management and parents? I've been just bumping into people and talking to a lot of people about how this is all going, and I've heard things from it's very, very difficult because the kids are swinging around in their chairs and getting up and walking away, and sometimes parents are just chiming in with questions. So I'm just curious, how that's been going, because you obviously have one of the most difficult ages, I think, in terms of attention span. So just curious to see how that's going from a perspective of the kids in the classroom and then the parents' interaction with this.
So the first week was very interesting. Just troubleshooting technology alone was a big challenge for us. I am very blessed to have some amazing parents that were able to take some short instructional videos from the student perspective to kind of share with me that I could then push out to parents so that they could help navigate and teach their child to navigate at home from that perspective. There definitely was a lot of background movement with other siblings and parents coming through. One of the ways that I kind of tried to figure that out was I taught the kids, just like we are on Zoom, when they go to the choice for their view, whether they want the grid boxes with everyone or the speaker presenting. So I try to have them stay on speaker presenting so that my picture is there. And then that kind of takes away from all of the other distractions because they just see me rather than all of the kids at the same time. Obviously, when we're in right now I'm looking at all of us in the grid. When we're doing a discussion, it's a little different because, I want to be able to see everyone and have everyone see each other when we're talking. But that is one way that I kind of tried to troubleshoot. Our principal has been awesome. Dr. Brewer has put out some phone calls and some emails for, to try and help along those ways if we saw someone consistently with distractions in the background that needed to kind of be addressed. And for us, I teach them interested message. So a lot of times I'll just say, get hands-free. So if they have a toy, if they have anything that doesn't have to do with our lesson at that moment, they know hands-free means they have to go put it to the side where it's not in their working space and show me their hands so that I know that they're ready. So that also has helped. An interested message, meaning, if I see someone rolling around on the floor, or my favorite was the jumping Superman over top of the couch while we're learning. That was a good one. I would just say, are you showing me an interested message? Let's check. And then we would just, everybody has kind of learned patience, and we just wait to make sure that everybody is kind of in front of their camera where we can see you. And we kind of just, the wait time for Zoom is very different than the wait time within the classroom for sure. But the kids, they adapt very quickly. They really do. And I also have like a little mute sign that I always hold up, so that I don't have to constantly say, mute yourself. And I'll just hold up the mute sign and they see it. So it's been a lot of collaboration between, parents and me and troubleshooting and them trying everything they can to help and just finding little tricks along the way that kind of are working for my kids. Because even though some of the tricks I'm using now work for this group, they didn't work at the end of the last school year with some of the kiddos that I had because they all have different personalities and things work differently. So there have been definitely some moments, but I would say over the past 2 weeks, the first week was rough. In the past 2 weeks, I feel like I'm actually starting to get into that rhythm with them where I can plan my day and, I can get through everything that I need to during the day. So, and if they all get very rambunctious, we just take a brain break. Because if there's like half the class wiggling all over the place, I'm like, all right, we're good for right now. We're going to take a break.
Mrs. Denon, I need to add that for the district, part of our initiative for the first 2 weeks of coming back was really focusing on SEL. and social emotional learning, and really just talking about those organizational skills and trying to make sure we really took the time to get those things in place, because if they're not in place, as you can see all the details that Mrs. Boyer has in her classroom, it would be not so successful. I need to give a quick anecdote where Mrs. Torsha and I were, touring the buildings, and I think we were in Gilbertsville, and it was another primary class. And we walked in, and this was the first week, and the teacher was having all the students share their pet. So her point was that let's just get it out of the way. Let's if you have a pet, and they did this whole sharing activity with the pet. So it just made me laugh, because instead of trying to battle, showing your little cat Sebastian on the screen, you just took advantage and let them to actually, use it as a positive to share them.
Yeah.
So.
Nice, nice.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Denon. And yeah, I think all three of my dogs have made appearances for both of my kids. Next, we have Mr. Hemingway.
All right, thank you, Mr. Foose. I was actually going to save this for board comment, but this is the perfect opportunity. Mrs. Boyer, thank you so much for that presentation. It was incredible. I just personally, I'm repeating the 6th grade. My daughter is in 6th grade at East, and so far, I haven't really had too much to do. I've tried to be engaged. I mean, my daughter is my biggest asset, and I think a lot of parents are realizing the same. As far as, I'm technologically stupid, to be honest with you. I fight technology, and to see my daughter, and I think she represents most of our district, to be able to get this and have the teachers finally have the opportunity to actually teach. To me, education is learning how to learn. And this is everybody kind of in it together. And I am so impressed and proud to be part of this district, and the administration and the team that they put together to pull this off have really done a fantastic job. I'll probably be one of the biggest critics of all this, and I really don't have anything to criticize. It's been, personally, to her teachers, they've been patient, they've been innovative, they've actually made this whole process to the point where I'm starting to think that now we offer something in Boyertown that other districts probably don't. We're offering, eventually we're going to have in-person instruction, but we're also preparing our kids for the future, which, again, I fight technology. But this is prepping them for what's down the road. How horrible this experience may be, is actually a good thing. We're learning as we go. Our teachers are phenomenal, and I thank all of you. Our administration, I thank all of you. And I'm not speaking as a board member, I'm speaking as a parent. And I'm taking this as an opportunity as a board member to make this public statement, but our district is top notch. And I'm so impressed, and I thank all of you for the extra time and effort. And I'm so excited to finally see our teachers having the ability to actually go out and do their thing. Our students are receptive. My daughter is having a good time. We are actually getting some learning going on here. I'm excited that when we get back in the buildings, and then also I'm excited for when we have more of this online stuff, which is new to me. I fight it. My daughter is phenomenal at it. She helps me every day. But I just wanted to make the comments that so far so good, and thank you everybody. And Ms. Boyer, I'm sure you have a tough day, as do all the teachers, and they really are stepping up. So Boyertown, thank you. That's all.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Hemingway, I'm going to piggyback on your comment there for a minute. So I on behalf of the district, I thank you for the feedback. But I also want to point out the importance of why the schedule that we created and having the Wednesday built in to provide some collaboration time for our teachers. So people like Mrs. Boyer, and we certainly have other incredible teachers across the district, have that ability to collaborate with one another and be able to teach one another and help support one another in this process. Because to your point, there are some amazing things happening out there, and we're only 2 weeks in. So it is really exciting to see the wonderful opportunities our students are being provided and the collaboration. There are absolute hiccups. There are absolutely technology issues, but what we really try to do pretty much on a weekly basis, we've communicated out to teachers, it's okay. You know, a roller coaster can be a fun ride is what my last message was out to teachers. It can make you sick sometimes, we do know that, but for the most part, it can be a fun ride, but it's all about going up and down hills in this process because it's new for everyone, and that's okay. And it's okay to take risks and to learn from things that have been successful and capitalize on the things that are strengths for our students. So thank you for that.
All right. Next, I have Mrs. Deeroff and then Ms. McWhorter.
Thank you, Mr. Foos. Mrs. Boyer, that was a fantastic presentation.
Thank you.
I wanted to see what it was like. I've been trying to picture it in my mind, and it was nothing like you just showed us. It was awesome. I just have one question. I don't think you could even do anything else to enhance it. I really don't. But I'm sure you seem like the type of person that's going to come up with some more things. I just have one question. No matter what school I would go into, you said this is grade 1, correct?
Yes, I am grade 1.
Would I see the same type of learning in all the other schools in grade 1?
So during the summer, when the virtual team started working on this, I was responsible for, obviously, grade 1 coming up with some ideas. So basically, at the end of the summer, when we kind of had that extra time before school started to kind of adapt new platforms and figure out how this was going to look and how this was going to work, I was able to actually share all of the Bitmoji classrooms that I had created with links with all of the first grade teachers. I do not know if everyone is using those right now. I can speak at Washington. I know that myself, Mrs. Rafe-Snyder, and Mrs. Linderman are using these Bitmoji classrooms to kind of fuel our instruction. But I know that many of the teachers were very interested in using them and applying them, but I don't know for sure if everyone is using it because we kind of presented a lot of different avenues that teachers could take to make this work. And then it was kind of just like your personality, pick the one that would best work for you. So everyone has a bunch of tools and skills that we kind of shared out. And then it was up to the individual teacher how they wanted to utilize all these digital resources to create their virtual classroom this year.
Okay, so Mr. Stout, so are we using different platforms in different schools?
No, Mrs. Deeroff, the answer to that question is, for the most part, across our district, is we are using the Google platform. In grades K through 2, we are utilizing Seesaw as a complement to the Google Classroom, as you had seen in the previous presentations when we had our intermediate level and our secondary high school level presentations about Google Classroom. So the core of our classroom virtual experiences are created around the Google platform for the most part. With the other, like Mrs. Boyer showed in her presentation, which she did not go into, but IXL is the platform that we purchase into for multiple years, which has a reading component to it. It has a math component to it. You didn't see really her click on Raz Kids. She didn't go into some of the specific things for level books, but all of our teachers have access to those same digital resources. How they coordinate and pull them all together is, kind of the unique experiences that our teachers do on a daily basis. That, it's kind of like if you walked into Mrs. Boyer's classroom at Washington, or, Mrs. Grove's classroom is a first grade classroom that I, supported at Colbrookdale. Their classrooms are going to look different because of their personalities, but ultimately the resources that are provided within the classrooms, we try to create consistent platforms across the district.
Okay, thank you very much. I mean, the presentation was excellent. Made me want to go back to school.
Well, Mrs. Duroff, we could get you a link and you could be a participant in Mrs. Boyer's classroom. I can hook that up. So watch what you wish for, Mrs. Duroff.
Okay, I'm sorry.
You'll have to show yourself. And then
Thank
she's
you
going to have to
very much.
listen to me sing.
Yeah, and I tell you.
Oh, that would be cool.
Mrs. Boyer totally left out the horn. So,
yes.
This horn that brings the kids back, it's this bike horn. It just makes, it's fun. And it just makes kids smile and laugh. So you would have a great time, Mrs. Duroff.
Thank you so much again. That was great.
Thank you.
All right, great. Next we have Ms. McWhirter.
All right, for starters, thank you very much for your presentation. That was wonderful. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
So I know that you worked on this over the summer, but how long did it take you to set up that classroom, or how long would it take an average teacher, not an average teacher, but one of our teachers one of our other teachers to set that? Yeah, and that looked like a lot of work.
It was many, many hours of work, more than I care to admit. But it's also because, again, of my personality. I just want it to be so kid-friendly that, I just would start adding things and then think, oh, this would be good here too, and this would be good here too. So it kind of was over the whole course of the summer, and then still I'm learning to add new things into it. The lucky thing for the rest of the teachers in the district is that everyone that was part of the virtual team created the baseline for them. So literally, if they chose to use a Bitmoji Classroom, they would just make a copy of one of the ones that I shared, and they could literally then plug in their own Google Slides for the lessons. So all of the, details as far as, organizing and how to make it all work together was kind of already done for them. And then they kind of could move and build on from it from that point. But it takes a long time, but it's worth it, because now I feel like my day is very smooth and the kids understand where they go and what they need to do. And, even tomorrow when it's, a more of check-ins and they're doing asynchronous work, I still know and I'm confident that, they know where to go now into the classroom to access all of their tools.
Well, and just to create a little relevance to the board, I know when we have done presentations in the past, and it seems like for a while there we were doing presentations every week, but one of the points that we kept coming back to was the virtual learning team, and Mrs. Boyer was a part of that, and now you can kind of see the work that happened behind the scenes as for what they did, and I would be remiss if I did not give a shout out to the Office of Teaching and Learning with Dr. Obero and Jen Joyce, who worked tirelessly behind the scenes to help provide support to our teachers. And again, when I put on a slide the virtual learning team, it really doesn't have a framework or a mindset for what that really means. But the work of that team coming together collaboratively with 30 or 40 plus teachers across the district, this is the end product of that, because they've worked together and provided these resources to one another, which then help to build capacity for other teachers. And when good things happen, they're trendy and they continue to move and support one another. So that's what's super exciting about the collaboration that's going on.
All right, so that was my first question, was how long, and it's obviously hours, and I think that even the rest of the teachers that are building off of this it's still taking them quite a bit of time. So a shout out to all of you. I'm K to 12. I really appreciate that, because I know it's not easy building something like that. Are the kids catching on pretty quickly to how to maneuver in their classroom now? Okay.
The first week was very tricky because they were still getting used to, where's the Zoom link that I have to go to every day to access Mrs. Boyer. But now I would say things are moving pretty smoothly. Today was the first day that I introduced Seesaw, and the kids had to, swipe out of the Zoom call, go to their Seesaw app, access it, complete the activity, and click the check mark to send it to me. And all but one kiddo was able to do it. And we figured out that the reason she couldn't do it is because she wasn't actually logged in to the Seesaw app. Her parents hadn't had a chance to actually log in with her credentials. So she kept saying to me, Mrs. Boyer, there's a picture of a kid and an adult. And I was sitting there thinking, I'm like, oh, does it say I'm a student or I'm a teacher? So we figured it out. But the rest of them, I mean, it was great that they were able to do that. The biggest hiccups really have been, simple glitches as to getting kicked off of Zoom and then having to come back in when something goes with the internet connection. But even the kids, this week, Mrs. Yurkovich, our art teacher, decided that she's using Google Meet starting next week. So she's been trying to explain to the kids, this is where you're going into your Google Meet in my Google Classroom. And then once I'm done, I'm going to tell you to then go to Mrs. Boyer's classroom. So those little hiccups we're still working through. But for the most part, I mean, the general things that allow them to go from Zoom to get to Seesaw, to get to an activity, and then get back to the Zoom call, like fluidly, has actually been very well, I don't know what the word is, very fluid for them to be able to kind of get back and forth. And the kids, the beautiful thing is that the kids, I've got some tech kids already, I'm calling them my tech helpers, because they will literally say to a student, okay, so look at your screen. You see at the top where the words are? You're going to click where the words are, and that's going to bring you back to the home page. And then when Mrs. Boyer honks the horn, you're going to stop what you're doing and you're going to go to the red microphone button, and that'll bring you back to the Zoom call. So they literally are actually troubleshooting and helping each other, which is really cool to see. Because for me, I'm on a laptop. I'm not on a student iPad. So even me sharing my screen with them would not assist them necessarily because they're looking at it on a different device. So it's really cool how the kids have kind of helped each other as well. And I mean, their directions to each other is sometimes better than me trying to explain it because it's in like kid language and they just say these things and all of a sudden they're back. I found my way. So troubleshooting along the way, but moving forward, I think it can only get easier. If you saw me at the end of the first week, I literally was exhausted and had no energy. Last week it got a little bit better. This week is going great. So I just feel like as we continue, it's going to get better.
Excellent. And then the next thing I wanted to ask was, and you kind of just answered it, if the kids have the opportunity to interact with each other, and it sounds like they do. Okay, so we will go.
It's pretty fun.
Cool.
Especially when we start the breakout rooms. Once we're in like small groups and we go into breakout rooms, then they'll be able to like collaborate more within small groups.
Great. And then my last question is the word mute. You said you had the little mute sign that you held up. Is that going to be part of their 1G words in the future?
Well, I will tell you, they learned the word math, reading, Fundations, and writing very quickly before any other power words this year, because I was like, when you see your tabs, if you have more than one open and you need to get back to the homeroom, you need to know what the word home is. So yes, the mute button and all of the names of our classrooms, I feel like they can read those words very well now.
Mrs. Boyer, you need to create virtual power words now. I didn't even think about that. It's a whole new trend. Virtual power words.
Oh, Mr. Stout. Maybe on spring break.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
I have a question similar to what was just asked. So we've heard obviously the presentation was great, and we talked a little bit about some of the experiences that we've had. I've been awestruck by what I've seen, but I also understand and appreciate that my kids are very fortunate that they have someone there to help them. So for a number of people, I imagine this is probably very challenging, very much a burden for them. What are the ways that, especially for like a younger student that might require more of the help, that we check that they're
that they're online, that they're able to access these? How do we help them troubleshoot if they don't have somebody readily available?
Which a lot of my kids don't. They don't, or their parent is home, but they're on work calls. So they can't necessarily get there at that moment. I'm being honest in saying that between myself and the other kids that are in the classroom, helping each other and, kind of helping them understand how to do one thing to the next, it's been extremely helpful. I have done a lot of phone calls with parents over the past couple weeks for those parents that for some reason, had trouble logging into Seesaw, or even with the videos that I sent for a tutorial step-by-step on, this is how you swipe out of Zoom to get into Seesaw, and then how you get back to the Zoom so that the kids know how to toggle back and forth between them. Those that the video wasn't helping them, then, I've done a couple of Zoom calls with parents with their devices where they are actually the host and sharing their screen with me so that then I can talk them through it in that manner. So that's been very helpful. Something else that kind of takes the pressure off the parents is that my Zoom call stays open the entire day, whether I am teaching at the moment or whether they're in an asynchronous activity. So that's where that horn that they were talking about comes into play. Once they have completed the mini lesson and they're going off to do their activity, everyone knows to kind of close their camera off, they mute themselves, they swipe out, go into their activity. If they need me, I'm still on the call. So they just have to come back in and say, Mrs. Boyer, I need help. And then I'm able to either troubleshoot right there or put them into a breakout room so that the rest of the kids don't have to hear our conversation. But it's really nice that when they minimize and mute and go out, no matter where they are or what they're doing on the iPad, as soon as I say, come back to me or honk my horn, they can hear it wherever they are. So I'm always there as a support. And that also takes the pressure off the parents for being, oh, you're supposed to be live. No, you're doing this. No, you're doing that. Oh, you have to be doing this activity. Did you get on that call? So it kind of like eliminates all of that where it's one call and it's now on me. It's off of the parents and on me.
Well, and another point of that, Mr. Foose, across the district, we still have our counselors, we have our administration. When I was witness to, multiple lessons, I see reading specialists, intervention people that are part of the Zoom session that's happening or the Google Meet. So there are those already built-in internal resources to help support one another, which is really exciting because you might question, well, how does a reading specialist, help to support Mrs. Boyer's classroom? Well, Mrs. Ramirez is right there in the Zoom session, and ultimately she can do a breakout session with a small group of kids and be focused on specific individual skills. So it takes a new mindset to get accustomed to what kinds of supports we have built in. So we've been very happy across the board with the amount of logins and the amount of supports that have happened with our students. And anyone who is vacant, who is not there, we do the follow-up to make sure that there's not something that we're missing.
That's great. There's both answers were very helpful. So thank you to both of you. Does anybody have any other questions? Ms. Nyman.
Yeah, thank you. It was great learning what I'm going to have to do when I have to watch my grandkids.
I do have some grandmoms and they like to dance with us. We're always like, go grandma, go grandma.
I don't know what to say to them.
There's also a pup-up in Mrs. Linderman's class and the kids like to go, look at pup-up.
I could just hear my two younger ones. Let's stop there. It was a great presentation. I did enjoy it.
Thank you.
Gives me something that I'm going to have to look forward to on whatever day I have to watch the kids. But that being said, I think you're saying November 16th of going and changing. Is that?
No,
What we are saying is that we are looking to the future, that we are not just, we are presenting today that we are looking to reopen school and bringing kids back in a hybrid model. Obviously, we reviewed kindergarten was coming in first grade next, and I did want to remind everyone, 2nd grade through 12th grade is returning October 5th. So the rest of the grade levels are going to be all coming in October 5th. And obviously at 50% capacity so that we can make sure that we are social distancing and that we are reducing those numbers of students within a classroom. But we know that the ultimate goal is to bring these kids back. So Mr. Stout and I and the Office of Teaching and Learning and the other administration are going to evaluate all of the data that's going to come between now and as we approach the end of the semester, and look and see what can we do next? How can we bring more students back? Do we approach all of elementary and start bringing them back in 4 days a week, just gradually, because we don't want to inundate ourselves and have something happen that would be related to the virus, because that still is out there, and to then have to pull everybody back. So we are looking for a gradual continuation to return. And hopefully we can get everybody back, and that we'll just have a, fingers crossed, cold and flu season, and be able to navigate what we've all been dealing with.
Oh, I just think that's dragging it out a tad too long. Parents are looking forward. Parents have got to get back to work. And they're running out of options with their kids. So I don't think that I can support waiting to November 16th. I think we got to try to do something between October 5th and then to get these kids back sooner. Because that's just too long to drag it out.
And we do understand that, but watching some of the other school districts and seeing where cases are spiking, that classrooms end up having to be closed for at least 14 days. And there was a recent ruling that just came out the other day that is saying that, potential quarantine is going to be even longer. So we just want to make sure that we don't have numbers that are going to cause us to close. And we are very understanding of the fact that parents need to have an old normal, not the new normal of being at home with their children. But we want to make sure that we're doing it in a safe way and one that we can sustain. I don't want to, bring everybody back only then to have to pull the carpet out and say, now we'll all have to be home because of something that would be out of our control. So, our goal is to definitely get them back sooner than later. And much to the board's surprise, first grade was thrown in there, kindergarten was thrown in there. We were able to do that. And, as we, start going through the weeks, if, we can determine that it is safe and we are doing a good job of maintaining our social distancing and we don't see, cases increasing or have any cases, we definitely want to bring kids back and, to a more permanent, time. So that's our goal, Mrs. Nyman. We just want to make sure that we're doing it in a safe, manner.
Right. I see two hands up, Ms. Hogan and Mr. Hemingway. We'll go in that order.
Thanks, Mr. Foose. Mrs. Torsha, I just have a quick question. When we are talking about the future, November, January, whatever, we are still going to be offering that full virtual option to families, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So for as long as you had, I believe you and I discussed this and you said it was either as long as there was low or moderate cases, we would be offering that virtual option?
Mrs. Hogan, we would be offering the virtual model as long as we would have to be working under some kind of restraints, by our governor or by, due to COVID. If, they say that it's gone and we can return to normal, we want to get everybody back into school. But obviously for the rest of the year, Mr. Stout and I in the Office of Teaching and Learning have discussed that it could be quite difficult for those that are fully virtual to then just jump back, at say April or, March, that it may be much more reasonable for them to remain out. So we would definitely be working with families, with the teachers, making sure that it was something that was, worked for both, continuing. But as of right now, I don't see virtual going away. BASD virtual, yes.
Right. Okay, I appreciate that clarification, and I've had quite a few parents reach out to me just for more information. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate you you saying that. Mm-hmm. And then I remain concerned about positivity, the rate of positivity in Berks. I remain concerned about I'm trying to think of the way, basically like the way our HVAC systems work and the spread of like aerosol droplets. I've been reading a lot about that. So I still am concerned even with bringing kindergartners into the building. And the more kids we bring in, the more opportunity for spread there is. And we're not social distancing on buses, correct?
We are 2 to a seat. We don't know what the buses are going to look like until we are starting to pick up students. But we are following all the regulations as far as getting onto the buses, wearing our masks, keeping your hands, to yourself. Children are allowed to have, their own hand sanitizer, with them. They've always been able to carry hand sanitizer. So, yeah, that is the biggest struggle for all school districts.
Right. Yeah. Obviously, this is the fault of no one, and I do recognize that you all are doing the best you can, and honestly, you're doing a very admirable job. But those things do concern me still. So thank you.
Understood.
All right, next I have Mr. Hemingway, followed by Ms. Denon.
Does that November date correspond with our trimester?
Mr. Hemingway, it does. Monday, November 16th is the end of the first trimester. So that is the perfect timing to really, be thinking about a potential point in time for a new transition.
Okay, well that makes perfect sense. I mean, it's quite obvious that I've been one that's been pressuring to have the kids back in the building. I think that, I don't know if this makes sense, but I agree with our conservative, aggressive approach that we've taken. I think it's unique to any other district that we are following. I think that we should set an example to other districts for which they should follow. And I'm on board. I trust you guys. I think you have a good plan. I think it's very aggressive, but it's also taken into consideration all the safety protocol that needs to be taken into place. And I commend you all and thank you so much. So I'm on board.
All right, next I have Ms. Denon.
Hi, thank you. I think Ms. Hogan asked my question, but I just want to confirm. So those, the parents that chose virtual or BOL or an outside charter, and let's just say November, we come back full speed. Would they be able to change their mind or no? I think that's the question I'm getting the most. If things get a lot better and we're bringing kids back, even if we're not bringing everybody back, but we're still doing the AB thing, would they be able to change? I think that's a question that I keep getting asked, and I honestly don't have the answer.
Yes. Mrs. Denon, as families find that, the option that they chose may not be working for them, or they are excited about what they're, seeing from their neighbors' children attending school, they absolutely can reach out to us and let us know that they would like to opt back into our brick and mortar program. Or if they wish to leave, Berks Online Learning and come to the Boyertown virtual learning, that is, something that they can do. The only thing we ask is that parents don't go back and forth. We wouldn't be able to, put you into school for the brick and mortar this week and then take you out next week for virtual. However, we understand that, if a child would get sick and they're in the brick and mortar, but they're well enough to be able to access their education and they can do it virtually, we're obviously going to allow them to do that because we want them to be in class in any way that they can. So yes, they may opt to come, to move. We're just asking that they're not trying to move multiple times.
Okay, and yeah, and that makes total sense. And I guess I won't get ahead of the slides, but just in terms of the numbers that we have and what we have going to the outside cyber charters, obviously, there's a huge concern with the cost. And as parents may see that the outside cyber either was better or not better and decide to change their mind and come back to ours, I wonder what the cost effect will be on the district once they've kind of signed up to go. So I guess I'll wait till the next slides because I think I'm skipping ahead.
All right. I would like to ask one clarification too. So the November 16th date, we're looking at the end of the semester or trimester, but we're, as far as just being forward-looking and that being a date that's kind of on our calendar, we're talking about expanding our hybrid at that point.
Correct. Yes.
And looking for how that can be done.
Yes. Yes, and that was a target date that we put out there. We wanted all of you to know that we were looking beyond October 5th, that we weren't happy to just say, we're coming back in the AB model, we're going to only keep 50% of the students there. We wanted everyone to know that, it is our goal to be able to work forward to give those parents an option that want their children in brick and mortar school to say that we're eventually going to get there. We're going to get closer and closer. We're just doing it in like Mr. Hemingway said, kind of a conservative, aggressive way, because we're trying to control the things that we have control over. I know we don't have control over the virus or who will get sick and who would be exposed, and then all of the processes that we would have to go through to navigate that in the event that there would be positive cases.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out, because my I guess the scientist in me just wants to point out that I do, my personal opinion and view of this is that we are likely in for a difficult fall and winter, especially with the convergence with flu season, flu being seasonal. This is why you get the flu shot at a particular point of the year. As we saw over the summer, COVID is not seasonal. It's it continued to linger around. So that convergence is going to create an additional burden, and trying to figure out which symptoms or what is going to lead to just some challenges that I think we need to be prepared for.
Yes, we agree.
All right, I think that is it for the questions and comments on that part of the presentation. And I again want to thank Mrs. Boyer for sharing her classroom with us.
And I'm just going to go over one or a couple more slides to end my part of the presentation tonight. Mrs. Boyer kind of texted me behind the scenes that she has a young one at home. So I want to give a last shout out to her for presenting tonight and giving us an overview of one first grade teacher's virtual environment. So thank you, Mrs. Boyer.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
So I believe Mrs. Denon spoke, and this is where I'm going to kind of end the presentation. I have to move the pictures around here so I can see. But what we wanted to do is compile some student data points for our district. And this is our first day enrollment numbers. We collect data points on a day 8 enrollment and I believe on a day 12 enrollment. The newest information that I had to share with the board was our day one enrollment. So if you look across the numbers, these are the totals of students that are both brick and mortar and virtual, BASD virtual, not BOL. So again, I'm trying to be careful here with my own screen here so everybody can see the information, but just to give you some totals of where we are in all of our levels. Obviously, the first grid there is our elementary school numbers, the middle level is our middle school numbers, and the far right numbers are our high school numbers. Down at the bottom corner, broken apart, as you can see, our current enrollment in BASD virtual is almost 1,800 students. So 1,799 students have signed up or tuned in to be BASD virtual students, and those are the families that would not be attending from a brick and mortar perspective. So again, just to give you some perspective, it'll be interesting to see, to Mrs. Torsha's point, as we move closer and closer, as some of our students with special needs came back this week. Kindergarten comes back Monday the 21st. First grade comes back Monday the 28th. And then the rest of 2 through 12 come back on October 5th to see how those BASD virtual numbers might shift as we move forward. A daunting number that is out there is our Berks Online Learning. 655 students are currently enrolled in our Berks Online Learning. I just need to put it out there to our world that is watching this presentation, as well as our school board members. It has beyond exceeded what our capacity for what was anticipated for Berks Online Learning. Many of our outside cyber enrollment areas, like the competitive cyber environments, can't even accept kids anymore because there are too many spots. It's no different with our Berks Online Learning. The capacity for what we were anticipating doing, we couldn't have predicted that, nor did Berks Online Learning have the capacity to even meet the high level of needs across all the districts that they're supporting. They ran out of workbooks. So one of the concerns about not having some workbooks for the students, if you go, we're in the Ed Center right now, for those of you that don't know. If you go down to my office, there's about 20 boxes that are sitting outside my office of paper copy workbooks that parents are going to start having the opportunity to come pick up so that they have the ability to complement the online instruction that's happening with Berks Online Learning. So again, I do apologize for some of the inconsistencies and some of the scenarios that are out there, but the whole virtual environment has been overwhelmed. Whether it's Boyertown and Outside Cyber or any one of those, if you do some research across the nation, it's been something that was not predicted in this process. Another area that I asked our enrollment office to look into, and this is an approximate, so I know Mrs. Denon had asked this specific question, but currently we have about 228, and that's a prediction about how many students within our district have enrolled in an outside cyber institution, which is up from what we typically had seen in the past. But to be totally transparent, it's not up as much as I might have predicted as far as looking at some of the opportunities. And in reality, if a family wanted to potentially leave to an outside cyber, they're full. And there's, you know, I say this in a little bit of a humorous way, there's no room at the inn. Like, there's not a lot of room for families. We hope, as we have presented our presentations over the months and seeing some of our teacher examples, that people do start to feel more comfortable with the opportunities that Boyertown is offering. And ultimately, to Mrs. Torsha's point, we want to see our kids here. We want to see our kids within our environment. And when we're doing the AB model and we're back and forth with brick and mortar on the days that we're attending and then the days that we're virtual, and then ultimately as we move forward, if we can get more of our brick and mortar days in play, that's where we want to see our students be. So at this particular slide, Mr. Foose, I'm going to end the presentation because I think we're a little after 9 o'clock and I know there's some other things to go over. So I can certainly answer any questions or wait till board comment at the end.
I do have a question.
All right, go ahead, Mrs. Giroff.
I was just wondering, you said there wasn't as many in the outside cyber as you expected, not more than not many more than normal. What was the normal before? How many did we usually have?
Yeah, Mrs. Deeroff, that's a great question. In my years of being somewhat responsible to oversee the cyber components, even as an elementary school principal, we have varied anywhere from the high 100s up to pushing 300. But I put that slide in there with those numbers just as a caution that those are the numbers that we are predicting. But technically, we don't necessarily know if some people have left our district. Not every family will go through the unenrollment process to go into an enrollment process into a new district. So sometimes it takes a little time to get caught up on that. So I asked our pupil services to just kind of make a prediction. So we are definitely ahead of where we would typically have been, but in all of my years of overseeing virtual, I can't say it's the worst that it's been. So, you know, it's kind of hard to see where that's going to fall as we move forward. But to my earlier point, many of the big outside cybers right now are not accepting new students from what we're being told.
Mrs. Deeroff, I'm sorry, Mrs. Deeroff, I did look up some data from May of 2018, so that, you know, it was at the end of that school year, and we had 176 students that were attending outside charter school.
Okay, thank you. Real quick, the other two questions I had is, you didn't give us any figures for homeschool or for private schools. How many do we have there? Because I'm adding the numbers and I don't come up with our total of kiddies.
I do not have that number, but I can certainly report that back to the board.
Okay, I just wondered if that increased or decreased also.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right. Checking if there are any other comments or questions at this time. I'm not seeing any. So we will end that presentation and move on to our next part of the meeting. I'm not sure what's coming up
We
next.
will be moving on to the superintendent's consent agenda, Mr. Foos.
Right.
And presented are the policies that were discussed at the last week's or 2 weeks ago policy meeting. As presented, I have first reading approval for policy 103, discrimination, Title IX, sexual harassment affecting students. B, first reading approval policy 104, discrimination, Title IX, sexual harassment affecting staff. C, first reading approval of policy number 203, immunizations and communicable diseases. D, first reading approval of policy 209, health examination screenings. E, first reading approval of policy number 247, hazing. F, first reading approval of policy 249, bullying, cyberbullying. G, first reading approval of policy 252, dating violence. H, first reading approval of policy number 314, physical examination. I, first reading approval of policy 317.1, educator misconduct. J, first reading approval of policy 334, sick leave. K, first reading approval of policy 340, responsibility for student welfare. L, first reading approval of policy 705, facilities and workplace safety. M, first reading approval of policy 824, maintaining professional adult student boundaries. N, first reading approval of policy 904, public attendance at school events. And last, first reading O, approval of policy number 907, school visitors. I would be asking for approval of the consent agenda as presented, that the Board of School Directors approve the consent agenda.
Can I get a motion?
No, I'm going to move.
All right, motion, and Mr. Updegrove second. So we will move to the vote since it's consent.
Mrs. Denon,
Yes.
Mr. Brophy,
Yes.
Ms. Nyman,
Yes.
Mrs. McWhirter,
Yes.
Mr. Updegrove,
Yes.
Mr. Hemingway, Mr. Hemingway,
I'm sorry, yes.
thank you. Ms. Steeroff,
Yes.
Mrs. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Foos.
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0.
Next, we have A, ratify the geotechnical, I'm sorry, this is under the superintendent's itemized agenda. And the first item is A, ratify the geotechnical and construction quality control contract for the ATAMM Phase 2 Stadium project. That the Board of School Directors ratifies the required services for geotechnical and construction quality control services as specified below for the ATAMM Phase 2 Stadium project inspection contractor to David Blackmore and Associates with hourly and unit costs varying by type of test. The costs for these services are included in the project budget.
Okay. Seeking motion.
Denon
So,
moves.
all right. I saw Mr. Updegrove and Mr. Brophy for first and second. And for this item, do we have any comments or questions?
I have a question.
All right, Mrs. Jaroff.
It says that the information is in here, but it's not. We only have one sheet. Apparently, the second sheet wasn't put in, so I have no idea what we're paying for, how much hour or nothing.
I will be happy to read the admin content. The ATAMM Phase 2 inspection firm that was slated to be the on-site inspectors on the district's behalf was to be an employee of Barry Isett from their inspections department. Due to staffing issues on their behalf, Isett, they were unable to provide the service at the time just before the project started. After notifying Boyertown Area School District of the inability to provide these services, Boyertown found another service to provide the inspections based on the requirements. BASD reached out to 2 other vendors, one from Lehigh Valley Certified Testing Labs and one from our area, David Blackmore and Associates. Upon getting their specific rates charges for us to review, Boyertown chose David Blackmore and Associates for various reasons. To include their loyalty, trip charges would be far less, and the fact that we have used them for previous projects in the district, including the BASH and the Middle School West renovations. The rate charges as an industry standard are equal across vendors, and so those did not factor into the decision heavily. Currently, these costs are tracking in line with what was expected and likely will be under budget given the high-risk areas of concern are behind us, and so therefore unexpected unknown items are unlikely to present.
Yeah, okay. Okay, that was all on here, but there should have been a second sheet attached. That wasn't to tell you how much. Where did I see that? It says the agreement and our terms and conditions are included and require your review and signature. Where is that page? That's where the information that I'm looking for should be on.
And that I do not have at my fingertips, Mrs. Deroff. I'm sorry, and I don't know if Mr. Drescher is still there to be able to.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I'm here. Those rates should have been included with that, if that's the contract. I can't open
Yeah,
it
we
from
don't
where I'm
see.
at.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. We only got half of it. We didn't get the contract again. We always get half of this stuff. Okay.
So just to clarify, is that different than the attachment here?
Yeah, that's the attachment that I didn't get, what you're showing there now on the screen.
Okay, yeah, that is available in Blackboard under administrative content. So it might be you might need to log in to the Blackboard platform with your board account to be able to see that.
Oh, I thought I was, but thank you.
Brandon, are you when you say Blackboard, are you talking about board docs?
Yeah, sorry, yes, board docs.
Yeah, I think that was it. I think that was attached. I can't remember if it was in the weekly report or not, but I think it might have been attached to the, you have to log in to that to see it. Because I think I saw it prior to, it just wasn't attached to this.
And Mr. Off, for your information, that all those rates and things that you're looking for are in there.
Okay, we'll have to be able to get it to see it. Thank you.
Would somebody be able to send that to Mrs. Duroff?
That's all right. We're voting on it tonight, so forget it.
I see
Move it.
Mr. Drescher's signature, so is this his recommendation?
Yeah, I was just looking at it on board docs, and yeah, it is the whole contract with Mr. Drescher's signature.
Ms. Nyman.
So then we would be getting a refund from the original contractor because he's not doing it?
It wouldn't be a refund, it would be a simple, we're not paying them. This comes out of our soft costs.
So he's not getting the whole money that he was entitled to. We're going to keep money back and we'll have money to pay for this then.
Yes, that is correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Foos,
Yes.
just to clarify, this was all part of the same discussion we had earlier. It was just a separate item. Mr. Drescher, this is what you had addressed earlier, right? About this group coming in. It's the same. It's the same item.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, just to clarify, just to make sure there wasn't any confusion. And it was basically because, and you and I had talked about this earlier, it was because Barry Isaac couldn't do the work. It was almost going to be a separate line item in his payment.
Yes.
And as far as what we had discussed, going with Blackmore is not going to be an additional cost compared to what we would have paid Barry Isaac, correct? I think that's the more important issue here.
That is correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. If there are no other comments or questions, we'll move to vote on that. Or sorry, I already got a motion in a second. Yes, because we're discussing it. So we'll move to a vote now.
Mrs. Denon,
Yes.
Mr. Brophy,
Yes.
Ms. Nyman,
Yes.
Mrs. McWhirter,
Yes.
Mr. Updegrove,
Yes.
Mr. Hemingway,
Yes.
Ms. Deeroff,
Yes.
Mrs. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Foos.
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0.
Next is B, personnel. The recommended action is that the Board of School Directors approve, ratify the items as listed.
Okay, we need a motion for personnel.
Motion, I move.
All right, supporter, seeking a second. Mr. Updegrove, any comments or questions on the personnel items? All right, let's move to vote.
Mrs. Denon,
Yes.
Mr. Brophy,
Yes.
Ms. Nyman,
Yes.
Mrs. McWhirter,
Yes.
Mr. Updegrove,
Yes.
Mr. Hemingway,
Yes.
Ms. Deeroff,
Yes.
Mrs. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Foos.
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0.
And I hand the rest over to you, Mr. Foos.
All right, so now we move on to committee comment. Any comments by committee members? All right, moving on to announcements. Pull up my screen here. So upcoming meeting dates, they continue to be listed on our website. I believe there's nothing scheduled for next week. But board members are asked to hold that date in case we need to schedule something. And then the following date, the 29th, we will be having a voting meeting. All right, seeking a motion to adjourn. See Ms. McWhirter with a second by Ms. Nyman. With that, we are adjourned.
Ms. Kincaid. Mrs. Kincaid.
Mrs. Kincaid, Mrs. Deeroff's calling.
Yes.
Okay, before you put everything away, would it be possible for you to tell me what I'm doing wrong? That I can only get that first sheet of the contract up?
How about if I give you a call?
Tonight or later?
Right after the meeting.
Oh, okay, then I'll leave it open. That's why I asked. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everyone.
Night.
Good night,
Good night,
Mrs.
everybody.
Deeroff. Good night, everyone.